We live in very trying times, in a world where people have zero purpose, zero vision for their life. They get up in the morning, nothing to do, nothing drives them. You wake up in the morning, no consequence. You have zero waking hours aside the job that gets you up. And if you are not fortunate to be employed, you get up whenever you want, you scroll the day out, spend the remaining 5 hours gossiping and arguing. That is a terrible way to live your life, my friend. Here's the trajectory of the average man. You are born, you go to school, and if you're fortunate to have a guardian that puts you in the right direction, you would have escaped so many negative experiences. And if you're unfortunate, you begin to write a nasty story that sometimes it takes only God to heal you from. Few years later, you attain 18. Society calls you an adult. Sometimes you begin a clueless journey towards life and destiny. A few years later, you get a job, you get married, you have children, you retire, struggle, arguing, and die. That is a terrible way to live. I do not believe an intelligent God who designed the universe would design humans for that kind of purpose. That is the way animals live. Not you, my friend. Not you. Psychologists will tell us that the major cause of depression is lack of purposelessness. I'm going to tell you how. The major cause of depression is when you feel that you are stagnated, or the only thing growing in your life is your age, and you're looking at all the people who started together with you doing amazing things. Perhaps somebody just got a job, someone just got married, and you feel like you've been in one place all your life. That's when depression creeps in. You're not depressed because it's a clinical disease or you caught it from the sky. Depression is an indicator that something in your life is wrong and you have to stand up and fix it, as opposed to pointing fingers. Here's why people find solace in depression. You find solace in depression because once you're fat, obese, lazy, broke, and a failure in all of its ramifications, society doesn't call you a loser. They say you are depressed. That's why most people would spend their entire life defending this ideal. There's so many controversial influencers who have come out backed up by proof to say depression is not real, yet you're defending it. If it's so terrible and it has ruined your entire existence, and someone come along to tell you that this is not real, that if you adopt this mindset, you will be cured from this hypochondria, because that's all it is. Hypochondria is an ailment that comes from self-diagnosis, an ailment that comes as a result of your belief. I guarantee you, if you give all the so-called depressed people $1 million, half of their problems will be solved. I'm not saying money solves everything or money is the cause of your problems, because I guarantee you there are rich people who are miserable. But that's the whole scope of this video. They lack purpose and identity. Another reason why people love this idea of depression is it gives them an identity. At least you can identify as a depressed person as opposed to nobody. So I'm depressed is an identity, and they find solace whenever they go for this Wednesday or Thursday hangout. They sit around in a circle talking about how suicidal and how depressing their life is. So they release cheap dopamine. And part of purpose, part of identity is that it gives you a feeling of importance. So you're routing that same experience but through a negative outlet, in the sense that you release cheap dopamine. For some guys, the only time they ever get hugged, the only time, I repeat, they ever get a hug from the opposite gender is whenever they're in this circles talking about how their life is terrible. Don't worry, bro, it's all going to be okay. And they get these hugs, releasing cheap dopamines. That's all it is. So once you find your identity and purpose, half of your problems is solved. Something has to get you out of bed. You are not put on this earth to exist simply. If you live your life and you do not change people, if you do not make impact, then you effectively never existed. It was as though you never existed. There's a phrase in the Bible that I read and it got me thinking. Just one sentence. During the era of John, that's a whole generation, and God did not recognize anybody because everyone was too busy reviling, drinking. Zero people made impact, and a whole generation was reduced to during the era of John. Doesn't that annoy you? Doesn't that piss you off deep down your soul? How do you find your purpose? It's a very good question. So there are pointers, there are things that point you to your purpose. For instance, if you see someone with a stethoscope, what do you call that person? Exactly. What about hammer and nails? Exactly. So there are pointers that can steer you in the right direction. Perhaps you don't have a talent that is obvious. You have to find ikigai. Your ikigai is what the Japanese terminalize as ikigai. Your purpose, your passion. So find something that puts you in a state of flow. Something that once you're immersed in, time is no longer a concept. An activity that you could spend literally 5 hours and it will be as though nothing has passed. So find something that puts you in that state of flow, an experience you enjoy doing, an activity you love. So don't come along, and I believe everyone is smart enough. I'm not talking about this rubbish entertainment. Oh, I love playing video games. Video games puts me in a state of flow. My friend, you know the truth as well as I do. Video games put me in the state of flow. I would have loved to be a FIFA Pro player, but it's easy. And that niche has been so commoditized in the sense that it's so easy, it's the easiest things to do, and there are so many variables which are out of your control. For instance, your keeper might decide to be Buffon on this day, the other day might become Victor Valdez. Is it your fault if your player commits a handball? I don't know. Is it your fault if someone scores a screamer? So there are so many things that were out of my control. Another thing I would like to add is, do not downplay your giftings. Because these giftings has been so entwined in our day-to-day activities, we downplay it. History is replete of people who demeaned what they have. For example, remember the widow, the wife of the prophet, who her late husband was in debt. We are about to collect her children as collateral before she ran to the prophet Elijah. Elijah asked her a question. What do you have in your house? Nothing except a jar of oil. That exception ended up not only getting her out of debt, but she lived off the rest. So I give you the recommendation, or I ask you the same question as Prophet Elijah. What do you have in your house? Stop demeaning what you have. Nothing except making hair. Don't royalties make their hair? Why are you not the one behind their back doing their hair? Nothing except barbing. Don't royalties cut their hair? So you have to refine your value such that it is dispensable, valuable enough that kings can place demand on what you have. The last thing I would like to share before I wrap this up is, purpose is progressive. Purpose is not static. For instance, take Michael Jordan for example. From average college basketballer to getting kicked off the team, to training hard, becoming a phenomenal basketballer, winning thousands of trophies, to becoming a motivational speaker, to opening up a brand that does millions of dollars. But all that started from the idea that he became one of the best basketballers, by extension making him rich, by extension creating a brand. Had he not develop one skill, all those other variables would not have happened. For instance, nobody would call him to motivate because there's nothing about his life that is inspiring. For instance, he would not be able to build a brand because he wouldn't be rich if he's not a phenomenal basketballer. Plus, he wouldn't have been able to establish this fan base that patronizes his brand, ultimately doing millions of dollars with Nike. So you see how one small change caused a ripple effect across all areas of his life. It's like a video game character. Level 1 is always going to be different from level 2, level 2 from level 3, and level 100 from the previous level. I want you to know that all the levels are leading you to predefined objectives. So trust the process and you'll be fine. The boss is always going to be different from level 3 and level 4. But all those different atmosphere leading you to the predefined goal. So yeah, you'll be fine. As always, my friends, I'm rooting for you all. Be purposeful. I'll see you in the next one.